Okay, I guess we will get started here. Um, I will introduce myself again. So I'm Kim Bredberg. I'm one of the founding partners of Blackbird and Company. I'm one of the primary authors, and and I developed kind of this methodology that we use to approach literacy. Today, Miss Claire and I are going to talk about how we approach early elementary writing. So we're going to be talking about like third, fourth, and fifth grade. Um, Claire, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Claire Bond, and I wear many different hats for Blackbird and Company. But one of my roles is the head teacher for the Pages classes, the Pages online classes, and I also teach. And I typically teach level 2 and 3 for the literature guides, and I do a lot of the applicational classes. So, and then just a little bit for my background, I have 3 children who all use Blackbird and Company curriculum. I have taught in the classroom with Blackbird and Company curriculum, and now I currently teach online. So that's a little bit about me. I'll pass
Awesome.
it to you, Kim.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to share and then I'm going to go backwards. I think my screen was not at the beginning. Here we go. We'll start at the beginning of the presentation. Inspiring elementary writers. So today we're going to be talking about third, fourth, and fifth grade writing. So when you purchase a grade level collection with us, uh, you will receive as part of that collection what we call our core offering. And with the core, students over the course of time will be reading 6 novels and they'll be journaling their way through these novels. Now, some people might think that the purpose of this is to make sure that our students are comprehending and understanding what's happening in the story, but that's not really why we're having our children journal. These journals are actually the meat of learning to write. Every skill each week that the student is doing involves idea making, whether they are journaling their notes about characters, observe their observations of the setting, translating what's happening in the plot of the section they just read, whether they're exploring words or writing sentences or crafting a paragraph. All of this is encouraging them to pick up that pencil and write their ideas. So this is what we believe is what we call integrating literacy. So the book serves 2 purposes. First of all, it's presenting this wonderful story with these just larger than life themes, but the other thing that the book does, the book is actually a writing coach. There's a built-in writing coach in each one of these stories. And what the student is doing is linking arms with that author and pulling their own original ideas from these stories and writing them in these journals. So the journaling, well, yes, it will help us to see what the child is comprehending. That's a very, very small part of its purpose. So what we want to talk about today is what happens with writing when students journal over time through their way through these great stories. So each week the students will they'll acquire new words and they'll use vocabulary from the story in new ways. They will explore characters. How do they reach out, grab for our hand, and help us to journey through these stories? And how do the characters grow and change and transform as they are navigating life within the story? The students are going to trace the setting and the plot. They're going to construct sentences. They're going to write paragraphs, and they're going to learn to hook. The hook is, so when we talk about writing in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we, instead of teaching that the student is going to write a topic sentence, we talk about this first sentence as a hook. And this is something that we talked about in our last class with Storymaker. Storymaker in the 3rd, the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th grade is really helping students to learn how to hook their readers into their stories in a captivating way. Uh-oh, I'm not on the right place. Here we go. Okay, so learning to write is actually the taming of an idea. And it all begins in the 3rd grade. We've given them all these wonderful skills in the 1st and the 2nd grade. I mean, in the kindergarten and the 1st grade. In the 2nd grade, they've practiced those skills. In the 3rd grade, they're really ready to tame a big idea. They're ready to be offered a prompt and for them to come up with an idea and to do the work of taming that idea onto the page. So let's talk 3rd grade. 3rd graders have a huge, wide range of skills. Okay, so these skills will tighten up in the 3rd grade, and in the 4th grade, we'll see a smaller range of skills that need to tighten up. And by the time we get to middle school, students are really, mostly just, writing bigger ideas. So in the 3rd grade, you can see on the sample here, we have a little person who is, you can see the fine motor is not as developed. You can see that there's still a tiny bit of, well, there's quite a bit of inventive spelling, because, BEKUS. This student happened to be a little dyslexic child who is really ready to journal, ready to write ideas, but still really working separate from the journaling on remediation of symphonic skills. On the right-hand side, you see another 3rd grader. So you see this big range here. This 3rd grader on the right-hand side is very confident. The fine motor is, you can tell, just the pencil work, more comfortable with the pencil. But still a young 3rd grader. So every week, the writing skills are going to be, within note-taking, within vocabulary, within these sentences, within these paragraphs, there are writing skills. Writing is not an isolated, is not something that we can isolate from ideas. It's something that whenever we have a pencil, whenever there's an implement in the hand and an idea is going on to the paper, whatever is being written is strengthening writing skills. So all of the note-taking, all of the vocabulary, the purposeful sentences, the paragraphs, this is how writers become strong writers. So at the 3rd grade level in our level 1 journals, students are supported in vocabulary, in their vocabulary work. The purpose of studying vocabulary is not isolated to, we need to have a large vocabulary. The reason we need to have a large vocabulary is so that we can enact our ideas. It's not just so that we can get a score on an SAT. It is so that we can actually write. So we're constantly trying to encourage children to dive in to word collecting and just, to love words and to enjoy words and to play with words. So in the third grade, one of our application pieces is Operation Lexicon Word Collectors. And in this activity, students every week will be collecting words as the characters of 3 wonderful books are collecting words. But also in our core student journals, every week we're going to choose about 6, 5 or 6 words that are just, we call them the juicy words from the story. They're not on a third grade list. These are just wonderful words. We provide the definitions right on the page. And some of the skills that you might not see in this activity are problem solving. And I think this really demonstrates that once students understand what's expected to them later in the third grade, they're going to be doing this very independently. And I love how this student just made these little X marks as the work was completed. So what we're doing is we're giving them the definitions, and we're giving them a sentence that models kind of a good and sophisticated and complex way to use that word in a new way. They are also supported in all the way through the core journal in an activity called Copying Well. So oftentimes, what they're spelling is right on the page, and copying a word is actually going to reinforce learning how to spell. So this copy work that's embedded in several of the activities of the core guides is another writing skill that's important, because it's going to reinforce spelling that has been learned. Comprehension is comprehensive. Okay, so how the comprehension element works every week is the student is guided through. At level 1, there's only 7 questions typically each week. And they're asked these leading questions that are plot points, connected to plot points. But these questions are chronologically ordered. So the first question happened at the beginning of that section's reading, and the last question happens at the end of that section's reading. This is not really just about comprehension. It really is about learning to write a true sentence. So students are learning that the question can be turned in, the answer starts in the question, and then it's turned into a statement. So the question on number 1 says, how will Elmer, I can't read it, I have to pull it really close. How will Elmer find the river? The answer, Elmer finds the river by following the beach to the river outlet. So using the question to form a complete sentence is something that all of the children start doing in the third grade. The typical kind of way that a student would want to do this would be, how will Elmer find the river? By going to the river outlet. Okay, so that's not a complete sentence. That's just a phrase. So we're encouraging them to understand the difference between a phrase and a river. A lot of time, why did Flat Stanley go down the drain? Because he wanted to rescue his mom's ring. Well, starting that, when you start like that with because, you're going to end up most likely with a phrase, unless you're a sophisticated writer and you say, because Flat Stanley needed to find his mother's ring, he courageously dove down the storm drain. Okay, so you can begin sentences with because, but young children will typically just throw a phrase at you when they begin with because. So when they're doing that, though, you get to just talk to them. When you start your sentence with because and you don't have a complete subject, it's called a phrase. So we're teaching these writing skills naturally, and we're helping students to construct ideas using these complete, interesting sentences. Okay, every week, each week, students will have a writing element in both level 1 and level 2 core units. This is, we're still talking about 3rd grade. And in the 3rd grade, when they're writing their paragraph, we're giving them a scaffolding. We're reminding them that all paragraphs are opened with this introduction, this topic sentence, and then I always write right next to this in all capital letters, hook. So this is the sentence that's going to draw your readers into your idea. The hook is supported by 3 sentences. So I always say defend your idea with 3 sentences. And then it's closed with a concluding sentence. And I like to write next to concluding sentence clincher. You want the twist at the end. Okay, so you want to give your readers something to think about. And I love what this little writer wrote at the end. Oh, I can't read it in this picture, but it was very cute for all we know. So you can hear where that will go. But okay, let's move on. Go back to here. So the rough draft. When children are brand new to the paragraph, and what you're seeing on the left-hand side of the screen is a 3rd grader, it's the same 3rd grader who's the dyslexic student who's brand new to writing a rough draft. The interesting thing about this little person is that he was not afraid of writing an idea. So we're not going to hold the child back just because the spelling is not, conventional yet. So with a student like this, and again, we're trying to show the huge range that you might encounter in the 3rd grade. With this, we would likely take the paragraph separately, make little corrections. You can see that the teacher made little spelling corrections on top of the words. If you come to a word and you can't decipher it, ask the student, what did you mean here? And then as the student tells you what was meant by this cluster of letters, you just gently write it on top of the word. You don't say, oh, that was misspelled. Let me show you how to spell it. You just demonstrate gently. Okay, so always look into the idea and think about what's trying to be conveyed. Listen to the idea. This is the first thing we want to do when we are looking into the writing of a student. Look and listen. So this had a great hook. It had a really splendid idea. There were lots of detailed descriptions, and there was a really good twist. So writing those things, you can see down in the white space there on the left, I just put a little check, SP, check spelling. And so all of those words that are misspelled, I like to make a list somewhere. So as the child is recopying, they can see those are the words they need to capture and recopy. And this is the final draft of that darling little paragraph. And one of the another tip that I like to give people, oftentimes in the 3rd grade, there will still be carryover spacing ideas. There won't be a space after a period, or there won't be space between words. This is something that is developmental. It's very normal, and it kind of remediates over time as you gently point it out. So this is the way I point out something like this. I might see we're colorful, squished together. And I'll just write in front of the child, did you mean we're colorful or we're colorful? And seriously, in about, 2 or 3 times of doing this, they start to do it on their own. Okay, so now let's talk about the next level, level 2 core. These are our 4th graders and our 5th graders, and they're ready to kind of move beyond. So you'll see that the journaling is still the same. They're using exceptional words to describe characters. They're defending those words with examples from the story. You can see on these pages that the student is much more comfortable with the fine motor. And but there's not a lot of detail written, but that's okay. That will come in time. We want to let students press into where they're at. So they're going to continue with their note taking, their vocabulary skills, and they're going to gain confidence in the 4th and the 5th grade. So this you'll see is a 5th grader, and you'll see just how much more this 5th grader was able to write. The muscle becomes strong, and it becomes a lot more independent because they're knowing the expectation. Okay, I have to describe these characters. I have to defend my ideas with ideas from the book. And in doing this, it's almost like they're getting ready for mini research because they have an idea, they're supporting it with information that they've been reading. So this is integrated reading and writing skills. Vocabulary at this level, they're going to start looking up words in the dictionary. And this is an awesome skill. And again, think what's happening beyond vocabulary. Being able to find these words in a dictionary, you're always going to see words around the words and you're going to get intrigued. So there's, inspiration, there's alphabetizing, learning, but it's also reinforcing spelling skills, because when you have to find a word, then you are having, in order to find it, you have to know how it's spelled. So if you have it spelled wrong in your mind, you won't be able to find the word, and you'll have to keep trying until you find the correct spelling. The other thing that happens at this level is there's a difference. You'll notice this a lot, that children will often write what they're speaking, and words will pop up during the paragraphing of students who are actually they're spelling a word onto their idea that is really, it might be a homonym, it might be something that is close, but it's not the same word, because they're encoding what they're speaking to themselves in their brain. This is a good example here. So the student looked up the word flecked, found the correct definition, and then when trying to use this word in a sentence, again, he wrote, "I flecked water off my hands," because when he's been used to saying, he says flecked instead of flick. So you'll notice that this kind of, you have to, they're learning to navigate what they've learned in speaking and translate it to writing. So what I did here is just, I wrote, actually, if you're gonna flick, I flicked the flecked spot. So I might have a rock and it's flecked with different spots, and I'm going to try to flick one of those flecks off. So I'm trying to demonstrate to the child what's happening in the writing. A lot of times early in level 2, children will have a hard time using the vocabulary in a new and original way, and in an expanded way. So one trick that I use is I say, when you're looking up the word in the dictionary will always provide a phrase. So I said, let's look at the word fleck. And so the phrase example was, "White caps flecked the blue sea. Now use that phrase in a sentence. And so that's what I suggested. And on a separate piece of paper, we did that together. Yesterday at the beach, white caps flecked the blue sea, period. Okay, so there's all kinds of things happening with this vocabulary. Again, think beyond building your child's vocabulary so that later they will receive some score on their SAT. That is not what this is about. We want to keep children enthralled by the wonder of words so that they have all of these words at their disposal, whoa, when they're writing their ideas. Okay, beyond vocabulary. So look here, I wanted to provide this to show what happens over time. Super, you can see, very confident. All of these sentences are really complex. We had to convince our mom and dad to take us to Disneyland. An earlier, more simple sentence might say, we convinced mom, period. And oftentimes I'll say, what did you convince mom of? Why did you convince her? So these W questions will help us to draw out more ideas. My cousin is dramatic about everything and cries a lot. There's lots of detail there instead of my cousin cries, my cousin is dramatic, period. Okay, so you see, this is why this is a writing skill, because over time, just this little sentence, this sentence work, this work of using new words in new ways in sentences is just moving more towards one true sentence. Okay, and the same thing with comprehension. Comprehension is much more than comprehending. This is the ballet bar, is what I call it. When we are encouraging students to follow this sequence through the plot. It is providing a wonderful opportunity for them to think deeper through the sequential plot, because again, question number 1 is at the beginning of that week's reading. And the last question here, I think, is question 12, is going to be at the end of that week's reading. Each one of these sentences is going to also give the child an opportunity to build a muscle. So this is a student who was new to Blackbird at level 2. And so you can see the first few times we're watching, we just want to see, okay, where's the muscle at? Where is this child in terms of being able to be independent? And you can see that sometimes there are not periods. Not every sentence is a complete thought. We're going to choose our battles. This is a key thing to keep in your mind when you are editing a child's work. Correct end marks, capitalization, a few spelling, but tuck into your mind, okay, where do I want this child to go next week? And the following week, I might, talk about how you take the subject from the question and move it into a sentence. And then again, you'll see here, this is someone at the end of the 5th grade, very comfortable, solid, fine motor, writing sophisticated sentences, and confident. You can see the confidence. So responding to these questions in sentence form is a really slow and meaningful writing activity. It also reinforces comprehension and helps us to have a little insight into what the student is learning. Here is another slide of comprehension. I just like to show a whole bunch of different levels. You can see the range is not as huge as it is in the 3rd grade. By the time we get into the 4th and the 5th grade, the range is closer. So in upper elementary is where we want to hand over the red pen to the student. We want to give them a pen, and before they come to us, the teacher, we want to say, okay, before you come to me, I want you to reread what you wrote, and I want you to use your red pen. This is a courageous activity. I want you to try to find try to find spelling issues, try to find capitalization. I teach them this really special mark. I say, take your pen, and if you're reading your idea and your idea jumps from here to here and you don't know what's happening in between, make a circle. And that's called a hole. And so oftentimes when I'm reading a student's work, especially in the 5th grade, I'm going to be looking for these holes. How did you jump from the car was in the driveway to we were walking in the sand at the beach? I'll put a circle there and I'll say, can you just explain to me what happened here? And they'll talk very easily. And then I'll say, write that down. Or as they're talking, I write it down. I put a star in that hole, and I put a star by the sentence, and they can fill that in the final draft. Engaging in the process of editing these ideas that students are enacting is exactly what motivates them to press into this really complicated work of writing. And this habit built over time will motivate students to write their ideas. I want to share here the story of a 4th grade boy who came to the school that I where I was the director for many years, and he was a really bright boy, super, super bright, but he was not confident with his ideas. And he would sit there and he would stare at that blank page and was super intimidated by the the white page. I don't have any ideas, Mrs. Bradford. What do I do? And so I would let him talk his ideas out. And then when I felt like we were at a starting point, I'd say, stop. Everything you just said, that we want to write. And then I will remind him where he started, and I will help him get that hook on the page, just repeating what he said. And then he would keep writing. Well, he was with us for a couple years at our school, and he ended up going to a different school. And I saw his mom in passing one day, and she said she was really afraid to go to the parent-teacher conference because she just thought, oh, he's, a very extroverted boy, and is he going to be a troublemaker? He's not a troublemaker. But she went in, and the teacher said, your son is motivating all of our students to write their ideas. They will say, I don't know what to write. And he was basically modeling what we teachers had done for him. Hey, what's your idea? Oh, that's a good idea. Write it down. And she just thought that was really delightful. So truly, truly, truly encouraging children that form follows function, that ideas come first. This is what writing is all about. It really is. Nobody that I know would ever, when asked to write a sentence about shoes, say, okay, what's the grammar that I'm going to use? What form should I use? What kind of words should I use? Prepositions, adverbial phrases. No, you're going to pick up your pencil and write a sentence about shoes. Okay. So let's talk about the 5-minute conference. Seriously, the 5-minute conference. So in the level 2, 4th and 5th grade, have your student, again, empower them with the red pen. They should come with their own edits first, but then have the student read aloud their draft to you. As they're reading, listen and encourage. Always keep in your mind, I'm going to choose my battles. Okay. What I'm doing as the child is reading is I might just be putting a check mark over words that are misspelled. At first, they're gonna stop their reading and look and say, "What are you doing?" And I'll say, "You keep reading. I'm just marking things that I want to talk about afterwards." They become really comfortable with that right away. So listen and encourage. Choose your battles. Find the hook. Oftentimes the hook is embedded in the middle of what they've already written. When you start to write, I mean, I'm a writer, and when I write, I'm just writing. I have an idea and I start writing. I always rearrange what I write because there's something about, it's you're kind of you're getting the speed wobbles when you first start. I oftentimes am crossing off what I first wrote and, oh, there it starts. So this paragraph was a perfect example of that. So the prompt is write a story about yourself that you would like to tell someone someday. So vacation adventures are my favorite memories. If I had to write a story about one, I would share about, can't read that, Utah. Okay. My family stayed in a house. But then the next sentence is really interesting. We all lived together for a week. And so I highlighted that sentence and I said, there's your hook. We all lived together for a week. Now everything else was very linear. It was really nicely formed. So that's a real easy change. There were no spelling errors in this little passage. But the last sentence, the twist at the end, had used a phrase twice. And so the last sentence reads, big family vacations are the best, and everyone should take a big family vacation. I said, in a really short space like that, saying that big, beautiful phrase twice, it's a little awkward. So I said, can we cross it off and exchange it for a single word? And the child right away, take one. And so, so this was a really easy 5-minute conference, and they typically are easy. The other thing that I pointed out, so I pointed out 3 things, was that space, the space issue. It's still here. We're going to see it all the way through late middle and or early and late elementary. Sorry. We're going to see that kind of, they're squishing words together, and it's because their brain is fully focused on idea making. So I just said, do you mean Utah my? Do you see there should be a space after the period so that I can say, or do you mean Utah my la 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 la? So always pointing out spacing. You're going to always, the indentation, the spacing, using the margins on the page, all of those spacing issues, that's developmental. And it happens because most of the brain energy is focusing on idea making, and that is good. That's a good thing. Okay, so those are some quick tips. And now I'm going to pass over the the Zoom microphone to you, Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire Bond again. Nice to see you. I think Kim covered it so well. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit. When she was talking about level 1, this here is 3rd grade, and we have you in this guide for 1 year. Now you can adjust that according to your student and where, if you think they need, I feel like we're really providing training wheels here, right? And Kim showed that in how we help kind of, scaffold the structure of the essay by giving the introduction, showing you where the body, the conclusion, we're giving you the vocabulary, having you match, fill in sentences, and you're working your way up to this level 2, right? And so I want to encourage you guys to use the guides as your tool. We give you a lot of tips at the beginning of the guides, but as you're moving into this, we talk about it being longitudinal. And so you're going to be in this guide 4th and 5th grade. That's 2 years, right? And that's 24 paragraphs a year. And you'll see how in the next talk me and Kim do, how we move up to middle school and high school. And when they're in that level 3, which is middle school, they're there for three years. So we're slowly building. So I just wanted to kind of give you that we're building up from each writing as they're kind of taking off, giving them their training wheels. When you're in level 1, you see a lot of spelling, the incomplete sentences, the indentation, the punctuation mistakes, run-on sentences, fragments, overuse of words, right? So common things that you're working on. And I think as you're moving towards level 2, now you're really we already introduced the hook, but we're really working on that hook, right? How do you pull the reader in and want them to keep reading, right? What you've written. How do you conclude and, add that little twist at the end? Now you're looking at things more like tense, past tense and future tense, right? And you're watching for writing that's redundant. Yes, but you're also pointing out how you can use repetition as a tool, right? So you're working and fine tuning these things. You're watching for language, and we're really working on that descriptive language and words, which I love how we build in vocabulary all along the way. So we pull from the book words. Kim was saying, that they use in that section, and you're learning the definitions, you're learning how to use them in sentences. But I also challenge our students to find words and circle them. Use again the book as your guide and your mentor that you don't understand or that you don't know. Like slow down to learn that vocabulary and those added words. You can also use it to as a challenge to put some of those words into your writing or incorporate. And Kim mentioned Operation Lexicon. That's a beautiful tool for working on language. We take, an author's writing, so it could be E.B. White, it could be Emily Dickinson, Ted Hughes. We take some of the words that they use in their writing. We give you a definition. We give you an example of their writing. You're doing some copy work, but then we challenge you to use the word. And then I love how we end those lessons in now you write a micro story, and use those words, incorporate as many as you can. And it's a skills practice, right? To keep expanding your language. And all along the way, we're doing that. Even as we're looking in characters, you think of a word, what's a synonym for that? Is there a different word we can use? So you're enhancing language and building on these skills all along the way, right? And it's in different works that they're using. So they're using the Operation Lexicon. We had mentioned Storymaker, where you're coming up with that first good sentence. So I just wanted to show how you're moving towards. So really, when you're getting in the 4th and 5th grade, you're going towards more details, more good, beautiful words, the show, not tell, the imagery, the rhythm, the varied sentences. And so you're working on this, asking questions, what does this mean? Or give me more. I love that. I love, we talk about giving all the wins, all the things that they've done right. And Kim will put that all over, the papers, and I will too. Beautifully written, love, great hook, so telling them really where they shine, because there's always the places they shine. And then, being able to add on. And I love how she points out, choose your battles, because you don't have to correct everything at once. You'll have time along the way. And let me say this for some parents who've seen me online, we do some of the Pages classes, they might repeat a lot of the mistakes for a while. That's why we stay here and we keep building. You're going to point it out to them, and they're going to see it in editing, and they're going to rewrite, and they're going to see the correction, but then they might do it again, so don't be discouraged with that you can keep working on and showing them where, and then you can decide where you need to add some tools along with that as well. We did a little presentation on tools of style, and that really helped with some style techniques, some grammar, some things they might be missing, and opportunities to kind of fill in when you see something repetitively coming up and where you want to work on that. I want to read you one of my students. I think what I wanted to really point out, and this one was the beautiful language. So this student started with us in level 1. She started, and we were really working on like adding some details, changing some language, really. And she got into this. She got a thesaurus. She was constantly bringing up new words in class. You're talking. So in one of her writings, I just want to see how you can hear how I just saw how those training wheels were really like taking her to be able to fly and using some, of her language. So she says, this was in Pablo and Bertie. So let me give you that one. And I think it was the, gosh, I would forget the prompt because I'm reading her final draft, but it was about the winds of change. If they came to your hometown, I believe. So really beautiful book. And this is what she says. When the remarkable winds of change come to my ordinary hometown, they would bring bajillions of blooming flowers. The winds of change would bring stunning flowers, and they would make anyone who encountered them smile. Hydrangeas, bluebonnets, tulips, roses, and baby's breath would flow through my town like a fast moving river. Smiles are contagious, so as people traveled, everyone would begin to grin. The winds of change not only would bring the blossoms, but they would bring cheer and joy too. Is a beautiful, I love the added words she used, the bajillions, and the stunning, and who encountered them, it's just beautiful. And then she even used a simile. And so we were talking about that too in metaphors, they'll learn, they hear, they learn, they see, they're having modeled, to them. They'll challenge themselves. You'll slowly see their work change and become more descriptive, and you'll see those images. So that's just one small example, but I loved how that students' writing really grew with us. So I really hope that that helped you. I kind of wanted you to see that it was over a period of time, and keep using your guide as a tool, knowing we're giving training wheels along the way. Encourage, encourage, encourage. Do not be defeated if you see things that keep coming up. You will get to it. It just takes time, so.
And one last thing, that was a beautiful example of our philosophy of writing. Really, what we believe is that if you give the child if most of their energy is spent being encouraged and learning how to bring one of their ideas to the page, and then we're engaging them in the real process of writing, idea, reread, conference with someone, and polish to final draft. If we're teaching them, that is the lesson of writing. You don't need to stand in front of a whiteboard and give a specific lesson on writing. You will cross all of the domains of writing. You will experience all the different types of sentences when you're trying to puzzle together an idea with your pencil. So, and that the example that Claire read, those kinds of examples always bring tears to my eyes because they're so lovely. This is called constructive writing. So, so I encourage you to take flight with us. Claire, do you want to point out where they can contact and stuff?
Yes. I'll end with that. So you can so all of our materials and things that we've mentioned, the applicational and our core, all of that is located on our website. And if you go to the orange bar, you'll be able to see everything by grade level, a la carte, all of our materials. And then we have classes, and that's also on the orange bar. And then you can see all of our pages, classes listed for the year, which is a beautiful thing. And so every time you click into a class, you'll get to see how long the session is, the day, the time, the teacher, and a brief description, so that you can get all of that. All of these are being recorded, and they will eventually be on our website. It will probably take 30 days or more for us to get these uploaded, but so that way you can reference back. You can also email us or call our 1-800 number. We take a lot of time with our customers, so we will answer your questions by phone and spend time with you, or email anything that you need. And then just, yeah, keep checking our free resources and blogs. Kim recently put a whole series of blogs on editing. So you can get a lot of these tips and even some of these samples if you just go to our website, and you can see I'm a printer, I'm a highlighter, I save all that stuff. So some really good tips there too. So yes, thank you so much for joining us today.